Wednesday has received a major upgrade that has indicated to us that the severe weather potential is increasing. Since most of you are here for the severe weather, I'll be starting with it. If you care more about the developing tropical system in the Gulf, use the video chapters below to skip ahead. Welcome to the forecast with Dylan. My name is Dylan. Let's get started. The Storm Prediction Center has officially upgraded portions of Illinois and Indiana to a moderate risk. That is a level 4 out of 5. They're explicitly calling this an outbreak scenario. We're talking about the potential for intense tornadoes, wind gusts up to 80 miles an hour, and baseball-sized hail. If you live in Springfield, Champaign, Peoria, Lafayette, or any of the surrounding areas, you are in the bullseye. Let's look at why this environment is so volatile, first of all. And by the way,
I wrote a script for this, but I'm probably not going to be able to keep it. If you can tell, I probably had to chop the first part up real bad. I've been struggling to follow the script, so I think I'm just going to go with the flow of kind of how I think this should go. And because I honestly, I think these sound a lot better when I just get up here and say stuff instead of scripting it. So I just wasted like an hour scripting this.
anyways, let's move on. This is the jet streak at the 500 millibar level. Now, this is a very powerful mid-level jet streak for mid-June. We're going to have winds between 70, 80 knots at the 500 millibar level. If we look upstairs, this is the 200 millibar level. The winds in some places exceed 100 knots. Now, if you got to go a little bit down south to start exceeding 100 knots here, but they're still pretty powerful winds up the upper levels of the atmosphere. Just realized I had you looking at the complete wrong date. This is the 200 millibar level, as you can see here. Now we have those winds that are exceeding 100 knots in some places. If we look back at the 500 millibar level, it looks about the same. So no real reason to show you an updated map. These values are slightly higher here, but not by too much. So basically, what this powerful mid and low level jet stream does, and I was about to get to this. Trust me, that's why the overlay said bulk shear. This creates a significant amount of bulk wind shear. Okay, this is between 0 and 6 kilometers. And I'll switch it over here. We can go to wrong button. We can go to 0 to 1 kilometers. This is at the lowest layer of the atmosphere, okay? And you can tell we've got strong wind shear in some of these places. If we pull this back a couple hours, that sits over Illinois, and that kind of moves on over into Indiana, some of these places as we move forward. The wind shear looks extremely powerful around 10 o'clock, so maybe that's when we could see the most tornadoes and tornadic activity out of these storms. And that pushes on through. We don't just talk about this wind shear for nothing. Okay, so wind shear basically means that the higher the wind shear, the faster the wind speed increases with height. Okay, so this wind shear kind of forces the storm updrafts to tilt and rotate, which keeps them alive for hours and allows them to become organized supercells. What we're looking at here is actually a pretty interesting setup because, as many weather analysts have noted, we're dealing with the kinematics, the upper and mid level winds of winter combined with the thermodynamics, the lower level moisture and temperature of spring and summer. Let's take a look down at the surface. So that strong low level jet I told you about, it's doing its thing. It's pulling an absolutely bonkers amount of moistures here from the south. Okay, so these dew points are going to reach what, like 68 here in Kansas City, 65. This is at 1 o'clock. But if we push this forward a couple hours, yeah, the 68 in Davenport, 66 in St. Louis, 63 in Chicago. Some of these places along here, this is in the low to mid 70s. Okay, so we're going to combine these high dew points here with really cold temperatures aloft. Let me show you that. All right, here's the temperatures at the 500 millibar level. You notice this is negative 7 degrees Celsius. Okay, so for reference, 0 degrees Celsius is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can imagine the upper air temperatures here being really cold. What this combination does is it kind of drives our instability here. Okay, so we're looking at mixed level CAPE on the 0ZH You notice this yields CAPE values of 3 to 4,000 joules per kilogram. It's a little bit uncertain depending on which models, which times you look at, which runs, but I've seen them in the ballpark of 3 to 4,000 joules per kilogram. Okay, what this means is that this provides massive potential energy for rapidly rising air, which is why the hail tomorrow could easily reach baseball size. I want to take you to the simulated reflectivity for tomorrow morning. This is a 0ZH Now, the timing for tomorrow all depends on how the morning convection behaves. Okay, so this is the 0ZH shows an ongoing cluster of storms here. It'll move out of Iowa into Illinois. This was present on the previous run as well. This early round of storms poses a localized risk for damaging wind and hail, possibly. And this is all I circled. Ignore my terrible drawing. It looks like a pear. So this poses a localized risk for damaging wind and hail, but is expected to weaken as it kind of moves along here. So these storms will weaken and move out uh, before the main line. So as you can see, by the time they're over Illinois at 12, these will be pretty weak. They'll start to intensify as they get into southern Illinois here for an hour or so, but then they just quickly become little rain showers, basically. Anyways, I got off track. Basically, these morning storms will reinforce a warm front across central Illinois, okay? Where this front stalls is critical. South of the front, the air recharges with intense heat and moisture. North of the front, the air stays cooler. Right along that frontal boundary there, the low-level wind direction changes sharply, creating localized areas of extreme low-level rotation. Okay, so that's part of what we're looking out for here. Now it's time to go state by state.
Reference all the times I mentioned. I'm going to try to get them in that area's time zone, but I'm used to seeing this Eastern time up here and just rolling with that. So if I get it wrong, I apologize in advance.
Let's start with Missouri. Okay, most of these guys and gals are under the level 3 enhanced risk for severe weather on Wednesday. Okay, this is driven by the 15% Sig 1 risk for hail and the 5% Sig 1 risk for tornadoes. I kept reading the 15% thinking it was tornadoes.
Anyways,
As you can see here, the little beans start firing off in Missouri by about 4 p.m. Central Time, but they'll really get going, you see here, by 5. Okay, by about 5:30, 6-ish, they'll be impacting Columbia, St. Louis by 7 to 8, and Springfield maybe by 10. Looks like it could be between 10 and 11 Central Time for these folks. One thing I noticed when I wrote the script, and the 0ZHRRR seemed to get rid of it, on the 18Z, actually we can take a look at this. On the 18ZHRRR, it showed a cluster of storms just sitting here north of Springfield and doing nothing. This appeared on the RRFS as well, which is why I kind of noted it down in the script. It would have maybe created a small localized flash flooding risk for these folks. The possibilities of this happening look lower now because the 0ZHRRR has just completely erased this. So I doubt this could be a possibility. We can look over at the total rainfall here and just see that, yeah, so it won't be as much as I originally expected. I was just expecting a small flash flooding risk north of Springfield if that actually panned out, but it doesn't seem to. Missouri itself will actually have a lot of instability during the earlier hours of this event. You see north of Columbia, Missouri here, a lot of these CAPE values are between 3,000 and 3,500 joules per kilogram. However, if we pull around over here to the significant tornado parameter, we can see that these values are pretty low. Maybe 1.5 to 2, maybe between 2 and 2.5, and some small pockets. Now, these increase as we move to 6 p.m. The 18ZHRRR actually didn't have this little increase. There's a little pocket right here of about 5 on the significant tornado parameter, so that's a little bit something interesting. These folks north of Columbia, especially north of Mulberly, I hope I'm saying that right, that's enough fuel for a strong tornado. Now, will anything happen? I don't know. That energy shows up right as those storms are kind of moving through. So, once again, this is just a small pocket on this model run, so nothing may not even happen with this. It's just worth noting that there's a slight increase in significant tornado parameter values in this little pocket right here, so it's something worth looking out for. Anyways, I got distracted again. So, basically what I'm trying to say is if these storms don't pose a tornado risk for Missouri, which they could, but if they don't, they will pose a big wind and hail risk, especially as these guys get going in their early hours here between 4 and 5 p.m. For these folks, they'll tap into that energy right away, and they'll start to create some wind and hail threats for these people. My friends in Illinois are really under the gun for severe weather Wednesday evening. Okay, most areas in Illinois, including Champaign, Peoria, and unfortunately Kankakee, are under the moderate risk for severe weather. This includes the 15% SIG 2 tornado risk and the 30% SIG 1 wind risk. So folks in Peoria, Galesburg, Lincoln, and Champaign may see a small wind and hailstorm in the late morning to early afternoon. As you can see, this little bean activity here will try to move through most of northern Illinois to the northern middle of Illinois between this area. We'll start to see some little bean activity between 10 a.m. and really 2 p.m. now. The earlier model run showed 3. Sorry, am I reading the wrong time? I'm reading the wrong time, sorry. Between 9 a.m. Sorry, oh my God. Yeah, between 9 a.m. for these people, and this will be really moved out by about 1. The earlier model showed this moving out about 2 hours later. So, but anyways, I'm off track. You think that this activity being so close to the kind of main initiation here, and it looks like the model changed this. So there's going to be more time for rapid destabilization in this area. Anyways, you think that this morning little bean activity being slightly close to the initiation time will cause a little bit of stabilization in the atmosphere. But no. In fact, right after this moves through, and this is my script that's not really accurate now, but a few hours after this moves through, the little bean activity will start. This is the main little bean activity, not the little baby little bean activity over here. This is like big boy little bean activity. Anyways, I'm off track talking about my little beans. If you're to the south and east of Galesburg, north of Peoria, you'll start to see supercell activity at about 4 p.m. your time. The Peoria will achieve the main impacts by 5. Lincoln and Springfield by 6. Springfield really between 6 and 7. Champaign, you might have some cells move through about 7. And they'll start to kind of break up a little bit. The southern part of the state will see this activity around 9. And it will be past Mount Vernon by midnight. And it will be out by about 2 a.m. I believe past 10, you won't see anything but wind and hailers. But, it's still stuff worth looking out for. I want to pull you over the significant tornado parameter here. This is cause for concern, unfortunately, for these areas. South of Kankakee, you have STPs between 7 and 7.5. That's very conductive for damaging strong to intense tornadoes. There's pockets here where it gets up to 8, 8.5. Really, all you need is like 4 for a strong tornado, and these values are really high. And obviously, these storms will take advantage of this pretty quickly. So unfortunately, yeah, there's a lot of tornado fuel. And this area, this pocket right in here, is why that corresponds with the National Weather Service 10% SIG 2 tornado risk. This is where we expect to see the most activity, and we expect to see strong to intense tornadoes, unfortunately. For our friends in Indiana, the north and western portions of Indiana, including Lafayette and Kokomo, are under the moderate risk, including the 15% SIG 2 risk for tornadoes and the 30% SIG 1 risk for wind. Some rain and thunderstorms here will move through before the main event, but these should be no more than rain, thunder, and maybe some wind. If we zoom in here, I had places written down. I don't even know where these places are now. Fort Wayne, really anywhere north of Indianapolis, anywhere here could expect to see some rain and some thunder before the main event really starts up. Maybe some intensification of the little beans here south of Warsaw near Rochester, here near Muncie. That's one of the places I had written down for some reason. Muncie here, that little bean looks to intensify, but they'll push out into Ohio before they can really do much to you. And then the main line starts. These guys will move through you starting at 7. These folks in Indiana, thankfully, are in Eastern time, so I won't botch them up. This is going to be 7 o'clock Eastern time, and it'll start to move into the north and western portions of the state. Okay, Michigan City, I think that's in Indiana. I'm not too good with geography. 6 and 7, Michigan City, South Bend, and Rensselaer. Rensselaer, I think that's how you say that. The little beans will start to move through here. Warsaw, south of Warsaw, north of Kokomo, and to the north of Lafayette if you're In these areas, you can expect to see a little bean activity by 8. And then they'll kind of, looks like they're going to break up in sort of the middle here. But then these areas down here, Terry Hate, I think we'll see some little bean activity around 10. Indianapolis at 11 will get some rain and thunder, hopefully by 11. The tornado chances and the damaging wind and all that would have gone down, okay? Because we will have some storms that will try to impact downtown Indianapolis. So hopefully the main threats have diminished by 11. If you're near Indianapolis, you'd expect to see rain and thunder by 11. Bloomington, these storms will move through between midnight and 1 a.m. And then Bedford, you can expect to see impacts at 2. And then these guys will move out of your state and literally just be rain and thunder for anyone south of that. I forgot to mention Fort Wayne, Huntington. You guys can expect to receive little bean activity. It looks like between 8 and 9. These storms will really be over Fort Wayne. The tornado threat will not be over by 8 and 9. So these folks up here really need to be staying weather aware as much as everybody else. It'll only, once they start to get down here, they'll start to weaken, hopefully by 10, 11 o'clock. But if you're anywhere north of Indianapolis, if you're north of this line, you really need to be staying weather aware. If you're south of it, you should be staying weather aware. But I know a lot of people aren't. So hopefully to the south of this little line I drew, the tornado threats will start to go down as the storms persist and it gets later through the night. I think I did that little thing called ranting, and in the middle of my rant, I didn't even realize that the overlay wasn't turned on. So that's my bad, guys. You didn't have an overlay. I don't want to re-record it. Okay, let's look at the significant tornado parameter. 5, 6. This energy will start moving through here. The storms won't tap into it between 7 and 8, as you can see, because we'll see a big reduction in this energy. That'll happen when the storms tap in. But as you can see, north of Lafayette, near Kokomo, south of Warsaw, to the south and east of Fort Wayne here, 8.99 values. Most of these places between 5 and 6, maybe between 5 and 6 and 7 if you're really unlucky. Usually the scale only goes up to 10. Now, we've seen it go past that lately. But if you're having STP values of more than 7, you really need to be on the lookout for strong to intense tornadoes. Yeah, if I push this forward a few hours, most of the tornado threat will be gone by 11. So these are when the storms will kind of be... Yeah, okay, so what I thought. So the storms, once they reach this corridor here, won't have a lot of tornado energy to tap into. So Indianapolis downtown will hopefully be spared from tornadic activity, because we know the big downtown area is not good for tornadoes to be rolling straight through there. So, yeah, the good news is the tornado threat diminishes once you get along this line. Bad news is tornado threat, strong to intense tornado threat, is really strong north of the line. I didn't have Ohio in my script, but I figured I'd cover them because just why not? These guys will be rain and thunder. There's not a lot of thunderstorm energy once you get to Ohio, and in fact, it'll be late night to early morning rain and thunder for these folks in Cleveland, Columbus, Ohio. Expect rain and thunder between 2 and 3. Cleveland, expect it between 12 and 1. You guys will not be receiving many severe thunderstorm warnings, and you definitely will not be receiving lots of tornadoes. The area, the majority of Ohio, Columbus, Dayton, Toledo, and to the west of Cleveland, it's only under a slight risk. That's 2% tornadoes, 5% hail, and 15% wind. There might be a medium kind of wind risk with these storms that move through Ohio, but it won't do a lot, in my opinion. I just talked for 20 minutes about severe weather. I think finally my talking about severe weather is over. Let's move to the tropics. It is potential tropical cyclone 1. So it's not a tropical depression yet. It's expected to form into a tropical depression and really reach tropical storm. And it's supposed to make a landfall here in Lake Charles, Louisiana. If you're in southeastern Texas, to the south and east of Houston, here in Galveston, Beaumont, you might want to get ready for some really excessive rain and some strong winds. This is going to push through Alexandria, Louisiana here, and by the time it reaches Mississippi and Alabama, it'll just be some rain. But I honestly didn't expect this thing to make any kind of landfall. It really surprised me. We can look at the satellite, and it has got its act together. It is a lot more than the clouds it was down here yesterday. Remember, we've talked about this for the past few days. It's been nothing more than clouds until just now. This ties into the excessive rainfall outlook. If we look at the next 3 days, it's all moderate risk of excessive rainfall. As this thing moves more inland, this flooding risk will expand. It's going to include a big portion of Louisiana, Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, and Birmingham, Alabama will all be included. This even goes up into Georgia and some of South Carolina, Anderson County here, Abbeville, Greenville, South Carolina, all the way up into Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga, Pikeville, Kentucky. This flooding risk is really big. Little Rock, Arkansas, it includes Wichita Falls, Fayetteville, and even Springfield, Missouri on Thursday. So this flooding risk is humongous, and it's all going to be caused by this tropical storm. Not only the landfall, but also the amount of moisture that the environment's going to kind of pull up is going to cause real excessive rain. So if you're really anywhere in the red or in the yellow here for the next 3 days, you need to be staying weather aware. Remember, turn around, don't drown. If a road's flooded, do not drive through it. And with that, I hope that I'm finally able to be done talking. I've been talking for 25 minutes straight. My mouth is really dry.
I want to go to bed. Well, no, I don't want to go to bed. I probably won't go to bed until like real later. I'm probably going to make shorts. The grind is worth it, though. It'll be worth it anyway.
My name is Dylan. Thanks for watching the forecast with Dylan. I'll see you tomorrow.